Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another DFS NASCAR Raceday show. This week we got the Geico 500 from Talladega Superspeedway. Super excited about that. Before we get started and talking about that, I am just going to share this as usual in a bunch of different spots here for you guys, so we can get some more people in here. Shows have been going awesome over like the last few weeks here, last few races. I know there was only a race last week, week off before that, but things have been going awesome. I just want to shout out to all of you guys. It's been fantastic seeing all these viewers and all the views that we've been getting on these videos. So shout out to you guys. You guys are the reason I keep doing these shows each and every week. I'm literally up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sundays to get NHL, NBA, MLB sheets all updated and ready to go, as well as my prep for the NASCAR, my picks, as well as prepping the back end for this video and stuff. So appreciate you guys coming by. If you want to smash up that like button, I will definitely be doing more of these videos. I really appreciate it. It really helps, the algorithm helps get the video out there to more people, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So I really do appreciate you hitting that like button, sharing it with your friends, pretty much anything there. So just sharing it here in a couple places, Facebook, Twitter, a couple of the chat rooms that I am in. Okay, so we've got it on Facebook. We will pin that to the channel. And then we will share it here and there, a little bit everywhere. How's everyone's Sunday going? Are you ready for the chaos that is Talladega? It's a completely different strategy in terms of fantasy and DFS compared to your mile and a half, your short tracks where you're looking for dominators. It's we're most definitely going to be talking about that here shortly. So if you've got questions, make sure to fire away with those questions, just because it's very, very important to understand that it is completely different here, and we haven't had one of these races since the start of the year at the Daytona 500. So we've only got 4 of these each and every year, the super speedways, and they are a completely different strategy for you almost have to feel uncomfortable when you're making your lineups, is a good way to put it for Talladega and Daytona. Okay, a couple more spots to share here, and then we will get started. I'm just going to throw this up in the chats. Save all the good content from to get a couple more people in here. And then for anyone that is watching this maybe after or missed the start of the live part here, for the first few minutes, I'm just kind of babbling on while I'm sharing it and stuff like that. But at the end of the show, if you're jumping in midway or anything like that, make sure to go back. You can always catch the replay on my YouTube channel after. Morning, Liz. How's it going? Interested who your pick to win here is today. Okay, so I'm just sharing a couple more places, and then I will jump into some content and look at some, I'll turn things over and we will have a look at the sheet. And then we'll talk some strategy. Like I said, it's a completely different animal this week. Yeah, picking out a flat-out winner. You might as well just close your eyes and throw a dart. And, multiple dartboards. Hey, Kenny, how's it going, buddy? I know you're ready to build some MME today, firing off some stats. We were looking at some perfect lineups from years past. It was quite shocking. That leads us into our first strategy thing this week. Number 1 rule is don't be afraid to leave money on the table. Don't worry about using all your salary this week. Do not stress about leaving money on the table. The winning lineup last year, just looking at, you can go to Line Star, and for free without having a subscription or anything, you can go back and look at the perfect lineups from races before. So the spring race, or I guess it was the summer race last year in June, 43,500 was used, 6,500 left on the table. You had Buescher, Nemechek, they were both in the 5K range. Ricky Stenhouse, 84. Ty Dillon was 71. Almirola was 68. And Blaney was the only 10K driver. He had some place differential in there as well. We're going to flip that over and we'll just look at some previous stats and stuff, because this is going to be, you're not looking for dominators this race, Randy. This is completely different strategy. The dominators in terms of the laps led, fast laps, don't even worry about that. This is a place differential race, and I'm going to flip over and look at the sheet and show you why here in just a second. I've also added a new tab on the sheet looking at teams. because that is a big thing, not just teams in terms of, Penske Racing and their 3 cars and their 1 satellite car with the Wood brothers, but Fords in general. Chevys are going to work together. Toyotas are going to work together. So keep that in mind. We see a lot of teamwork at these tracks just because, they're pushing each other. The teamwork is a big thing. You can move from the back of the pack to the front in, 1, 2, 3 laps quite easily here in the draft. So keep that in mind. That's why place differential is much more important. And I've just got one more place to share it here. Can't seem to do 2 things at once, but just give me a second and I'm going to flip over to the sheet and we'll just have a look at some information. Live talking NASCAR. Okay, we'll get that off of there. I know the sizing is going to be a little bit off, but we will flip it over to the screen share. More. There we go. Get this off of here. So I got my plays up here, a few of them up on the sheet. I'm going to sort by, got to bring that back down for a second. We are going to sort by DraftKings salary. That's what we're going to concentrate on. That's what I play the most on here. So now it looks crazy. There we go. So now Chris looks crazy. We are good to start the show here. So yeah, as you can see, my core drivers are pretty balanced. So right off the bat, the first thing that you're going to see is that I'm going to be leaving a ton of money on the table this week. My lineups are going to look crazy. If you don't think your lineups look crazy when you build them, just hit delete, clear, start over. Just simply because place differential. So first, let's look at the DAGA track history tab, looking at the last 10 races and a bunch of information. So the first thing I want to point out here, when I said place differential is key, dominators are not. Denny Hammond started from the pole on the fall race. He ended up, drifting back in the pack through. I don't think he was up there at the end of stage 1, possibly, but stage 2, he ended up falling back. Average run position of 20th during the entire race. He did end up leading some laps, 26, which, we got 100 or 200 laps here, 188 laps in this race. So we don't normally see any dominators over 50 laps led. It's very rare anyway. We'll talk about Blaney here in a second, but he led 26 laps. So he got some dominator, started from the pole, won the race. 52.85 points. That's the 7th most points in that whole entire race. Just scroll down. Look at the rest of the top 10. No one inside the top 15. We've got Austin Dillon, who started inside the top 15, all the way down to the 13th. And then even we scroll down here. There's only 2 drivers inside the top 10, or inside the top 17 starting positions that started top 10. Place differential is huge. Negative correlation. We'll go back to the spring race. Only a 0.364. If you remember looking at the short tracks that we've been talking about before, I think Richmond was somewhere in the 0.7 to 0.8. A lot of these short tracks, a high correlation. When we see the high correlation, we're looking for dominators. We're looking for drivers to lead 100-plus laps and really get us those points. Those drivers are going to be key to our lineups. This week, not going to be the same. Like I said, we're going to get a lot of drivers that are, we're going to start seeing a lot of drivers finishing top 10 that are starting back 16th to 20th, 21st to 25th, even 25th to 30th, which we've seen here, and even 30th to 35th. So just waiting for it to go back green. I'm just looking at my internet status here, looking pretty good. If you guys see anything or if it cuts out, you can't hear me, anything at all, just throw it up in the chat. I'm going to be going back to the chat screen here and just checking on it for any questions and anything like that. So throw your questions up in the chat and I will for sure get to them here. But I'm just on sharing the tab and looking at a couple other tabs, just looking at this information here. So going back to this, let's go back even to 2019 and look at the Talladega races here. 0.074, very low correlation. 3 drivers led 20 plus, none led 50. Again, we had drivers start 36 to 40th, finish top 10, 30th to 35th. Now the big difference here, what I was getting to, was that with these 2020 races, both of them were with the kind of different qualifying. They didn't actually qualify for this, so we did see which we've seen these drivers, mostly the good drivers, even in this race, which was the fall race, start up towards the front. The drivers that were doing the best throughout the year, obviously starting towards the front. We still seen that place differential play out. It's chaos here. We're going to see 2 to 3 probably crashes during the race. So it's all about setting yourself up. Like I say this every week, it's all about math, math, math. Set yourself up so that when your core drivers come, or your core drivers work out, your 3-4 core drivers, and you built 10, 15 lineups around those core drivers, make sure that with that place differential here at this track, make sure that you're set up to have the maximum upside possible. Don't just think, okay, this driver's not very good. Like down here at the bottom, Ryan Preece, 6,400, Justin Haley, I've got as green core plays. That never happens unless we're at super speedways, just simply because Justin Haley started 34th, finished 11th here last year. He's got a Daytona win. Over here, if we look at the super speedway, Daytona and Talladega over the 2019 to 2021, 4 races, he's got a win. That was the Daytona summer race 2 years ago, inside the top 20 in 3 of those 4 races. So he knows how to get around here and stay out of those wrecks for the most part. I mean, you can't just stay out of the wrecks forever, but as you can see with some of these drivers, Michael McDowell, for instance, he gets in a lot of wrecks here at Talladega. So some of those drivers just don't know where to situate themselves, I guess you could say, maybe for a lack of teammates, maybe for a single car team, smaller teams. If it's just the driver just doesn't quite get it. But that's what I'm looking for, is experience on super speedways. But generally, you want that place differential. So scrolling back at the top, what looks really crazy this week is simply because the ranking system the formula model for figuring out the starting positions for these races now is based on, the previous race, the fastest lap, average lap time, where you finish, that sort of thing. So we're going to see the best drivers here starting at the top. These are also the most expensive drivers. So this is a bit different because usually we see these elite place differential guys a lot more expensive. I mean, we got Harrison Burton here in the 96. 7,900, started 39th. That's, it's his first cup race, but still, he's starting at the back of the pack. So he's got big upside. He'd easily top 20, top 10. We've seen these guys do it all the time. Brendan Gaughan, for instance, would come in and just, mainly race these super speedways in this lesser equipment. And he was like top 10 in like 4 of his last 5 Daytona races, something like that. He wasn't as good at Talladega, but just there's a lot more variance at these tracks, almost for sure. And your player pool has to open up a ton. You can't feel uncomfortable about leaving money on the table. You also can't feel uncomfortable about not having your Chase Elliott's, Ryan Blaney's, Denny Hamlin's, Joey Logano's in your lineup. You can't build a lineup and say, well, geez, I really need those guys. Yeah, Denny Hamlin is the favorite to win this race. He started from the pole the last time they were here and won, led 26 laps. But like I said, for fantasy, he'd be a bit better play on FanDuel in that instance. If we go back over and look at that last Talladega race here, slide back over, 65.6 FanDuel points. I'll bring that over so you can see it here. Still, that was only tied for third highest, even on FanDuel, where place differential is only worth half as much. So just keep that in mind, that make a rule for yourself when you're building your lineups or developing your core that you want, as we can see, we don't have to go right back to the 30th to 39th starting position to build our core, but limit yourself to maybe one driver starting 5th to 10th, or say 5th to 12th. And then make sure that in every lineup you've got 4 drivers at least starting outside the top 20, probably 3 starting outside the top 25. These are good rules to make yourself when building your lineups, to make sure that you maximize on the upside in terms of your place differential when that core works out, because there's going to be crashes. Guys from the back are going to finish up front. We've seen that. And like I said, Denny Hamlin starting from the pole led 26 laps, which is pretty high for Talladega. I mean, we've seen Ryan Blaney lead 63 in the spring race, started 12th, finished 72, obviously because he got 11 place differential points in there as well. But say he started from the pole and led 63 laps, we'll take away 11 points there just for those place differential. He's down at 61.2 and only the second highest fantasy score with 63 laps. So for a driver starting inside the top 5, they need a lot to go right for them to be in the optimal lineup if you're playing GPP. Just even cash games, they need a lot to go right for them to hit even their floor pricing. Like Denny Hamlin, as the 7th most fantasy points, is not going to work for you. You're not going to be winning a GPP if he starts from the pole, leads 20 to 25 laps, and wins the race. You're not going to win. The winner will not be, once again, in the optimal lineup at the end of the race. So keep that in mind when you're building their lineups. The number 1 rule. I'm going to repeat it over and over and over again because this is a completely different animal. Don't look at dominators. X out the bottom 5 today, and I'm only liking, yeah, I agree there. you take those bottom guys, but like you said, in this race, you just open up your player pool, just expand it. That doesn't mean, if you're building 20 max, have your player pool 25 drivers. I'm still going to have a tight player pool. As you can see, this is pretty much my player pool today. I'm giving it away for this big race here. As you can see, all these core drivers, but they all come. I don't have one driver in my core right now that is over 9K. Like Harvick starting 16th is intriguing, but he's just been terrible on super speedways in general lately, especially here, like one top 10. Just doesn't seem to me like a great play. It'd be more of a GPP if you wanted to get in there and get some. But I'm fading Hamlin and Logano starting 1-2 because, like I said, they need a ton to go right for them. I'm fading everyone inside the top 5, so that takes out Truex and Bowman. Like I could literally go and just go like this for you guys just to show you. I'm not going to do this on the other sheet because, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you what's optimal, and we see it over and over and over and over again. Guys starting inside the top 5, top 10 just don't show up in the winning lineup. The only time we really see it is like a Brad Keselowski. He hasn't been great here at Talladega lately, as you can see, but starting 10th, if he was to win, we'll go look at the matrix now a little bit. If he was to, say, lead, I don't know, let's say 10 laps, 5 fast laps, we need about 50, 52 points just for that 5x, so he can finish third with that little bit of lap slide. If he wins the race, you're looking at 58. If he doesn't lead any, maybe leads the final lap. I don't like projecting any lap slide today. Like Hamlin might not even lead the opening lap. Logano's on the outside, so you got Toyota and Ford on the front row. Truex is going to be behind Hamlin, giving him a push, and who is fourth? William Byron is going to be, so you're going to have Chevy behind Ford. So there's a good chance Hamlin gets out front early, but it's really tough to say. He might only lead 1 lap. He might lead only 2 laps. So I'm not projecting any dominator points today. And Keselowski with the win is only giving us about 5x on there, as you can see. So these guys starting top 10 are almost all going to be a fade for me in my initial starting lineups. I'm probably going to build a 20 max just built around guys, like I said, starting maybe I'm going to limit myself to 1 driver starting 10th to 15th. I'm going to make sure that I have 4 or 5 drivers, probably 5 drivers outside the top 15 and 2 max between, let's say, 10th and 20th, because we'll add in the 15th to 20th. But generally, I'm going to have every lineup's going to have 4 drivers outside the top 20 and probably at least 2 of them outside the top 25, if not outside the top 30. So now that we've sat here and we've talked about rules, we've talked about strategy for pretty much 17 and a half minutes straight here, I want to talk about some drivers, some guys I like. So Liz is asking here about Blaney. So let's just go look at Blaney. Starting 7th, going to be GPP only. I'm not going to have a lot of exposure if I have any at all. Starting 7th, we need kind of a race like he had here in the spring last year, where he came from 12th. He behind Logano, who started 9th. They were up inside that top 5, top 10 pretty much the whole entire day. Keselowski here as well, as we can see. But in terms of those lap slide, I don't see 63 lap slide coming out of him today. Even at 40, we'll go throw 40 lap slide on here for you just to see what it looks like. I don't like projecting a lot of fast laps. You get about 6x if he leads 40 and finishes first, 6.5x somewhere in there. That's 40 lap sled. Take that out and you're still only looking at 5x with a win. Let's just give him 10 lap sled. You're still only looking at just over 5x when you, in terms of, say, I like these guys down here a little bit more. Let's say Almirola. We only need about 45, 44 points with no lap sled. So the 7th place finish out of Almirola is the same as a win for Blaney with no lap sled in terms of their points per dollar value. So that just, to me, you get the price, you get the higher floor, you get the higher upside. I'm definitely going, this is why I have these rules of not rostering guys inside the top 10. And to be honest, I'm kind of leaning towards having, out of my 20 max today, at least my 20 max build, 0 drivers inside the top 10. And I'm probably going to go 5 outside the top 20 and only 1 between, say, 10th and 20th. It's just kind of the way I'm leaning right now with this place differential. It may not work out that way, but still, just doing the math, if Hamlin, Logano, or any of these guys, Elliott, Blaney, Keselowski, at their prices, don't get up there and lead those laps like we rarely see, their upside is only like 5x. That's not going to be enough, in my opinion, when we start seeing these guys from 15th and on start creeping in there, and there is a ton of value down here that I like as well. Yeah, Penske, little bit like Logano has been a lot better here than Keselowski, even though Keselowski does have 2 wins in his last 10 here. Logano's been a lot more consistent on these tracks. And honestly, like you'd look at the career track history, yes, that career track history is crazy. They got 8 wins between them, 15 top fives in 48 races. So they've been really good, very consistent here. Not so much lately in these newer packages that have been coming out. It's been more the older style, the different kind of drafting, which has changed, I don't know, 5 times in the last 6, 7 years. So what I see here lately is just not as much consistency. And for me, I'm not even so much looking as much at track history unless it's, picking between driver A and driver B, and I've narrowed it down between them. I'm just simply going off of place differential. That's my simple formula here this week. And that's why I have in my early build here, no drivers 9K and up in my player pool at the moment. Keselowski is starting 10th, but he's the most expensive driver. So, like I said, he needs to lead still 40 laps in that zone just to give you that 5 to 6x. I want 7 to 8x. I want that upside. That's kind of what we see here with these perfect lineups. And like I said, I'm going to repeat it again. Don't worry about leaving money on the table. I'm going to go just look at some core plays and plug them in here right now and see how much I'm going to leave on the table. Almirola and Stenhouse, I like them starting 14th, 17th. Both of them have been very consistent at Talladega. Both of them have been consistent at super speedways. Both of them fall in that almost, they're 14th to 20, so 14th and 17th starting positions. So they got that place differential upside. The odds to win is there. The prices are in the mid 8K range. Both of them I like. You can go and throw Burton in there, although it is his first Cup race. Like I said, he's starting 39th. And even if we go look at the matrix at Harrison Burton here real quick, we need, so 8 times 5 is 40, is kind of like a floor that we're looking for. 21st place finish. This is Talladega. I could definitely see a 10th to 15th place finish out of him in his first Cup race just because it's Talladega. So that gets us in 52 to 63 point range. That's going to be winning lineup if that happens. So got to have him in your player pool, I think, just because of the upside that is available. Not even worrying that it is his first Cup race out there. There is a little bit of risk, obviously, but a FanDuel, he's min price. You have to, you put him in, you can go any way you want and get the elite place differential. Going down, we got Newman and Jones. So if we just throw in all these guys right here in this mid range and just see what we got left over, Newman's been consistent starting 28th. I mean, he's going to be super high on for sure. Jones starting 22nd, top fives in back-to-back races here. Different equipment, mind you, but still, we lower the equipment. The gap in equipment is reduced greatly at Talladega and Daytona. That's a great way to put it. So let's just roll with that. So with those guys in there, that's Jones, Newman, Burton, Stenhouse, Almirola. We got 9,800 left over, and I ain't going up into the $9,000 range to fill that lineup out. Let's just throw Priest in. He's green. That leaves 3,400, and that is probably going to be some of my lowest amount of money that I'm going to be leaving on the table, just to give you guys a clue into mine. Yeah, who are you talking about? Funkhauser 47? Yeah. I have to take Ricky Stenhouse here. I mean, look at all the top 10s that he's got at this track. Starting 17th, he's got top 10 upside most definitely. He is excellent. I'm going to call them plate races, but they're super speedways. They're not restrictor plates anymore. A little bit different. I mean, his track record here lately hasn't been that great, but average run of 15th. He gets in wrecks. I get it. But just that place differential, he's going to be in my core, my player pool today. He has to be starting 17th. I'm just playing the math game, and the upside with him is much greater than these guys, and he's cheaper. So that's why I'm going with Ricky. It's just a simple math thing. I'm not looking at who the driver is as much this week, and honestly, he's been pretty good so far this year. Like if we go look at so I've updated the sheet here a little bit. You might notice this week I got current form, which is last 7 races. Everything after Daytona, the 2 races to start the year at Daytona. Then we've got season races. He's finished inside the top 20 every single race. So something may change. Only 2 drivers have done that this year, Hamlin and Stenhouse. So that definitely stands out to me that he's been a lot more consistent and now coming to the type of track where he's probably had the most success in his career. So I'm off of talking about Ricky now. He's definitely going to be in my player pool, but all these guys in green are definitely my top plays. I like Haley starting 34th. The place differential's there. He's had some success here in the Cup car. Like I said, he won a race Daytona Summer, so he gets these tracks. It's all about luck. It's all about setting your player pool, and then it really just does come down to luck and, you know, hoping that your drivers don't get taken out in the wreck, or that it's the highest owned driver that you have that gets taken out in the wreck, because you're still going to have a chance to cash. All right, going to start wrapping things up because I've kind of talked about the most important thing. I'm not going to sit here and talk about every driver today. You can see here at this race, my player pool looks crazy. I totally get it for people that are, you know, maybe new to Super Speedway, DFS NASCAR, maybe new to DFS NASCAR. We just came off a race where we were talking about dominators for the whole entire video. Getting 2 dominators in there, guys that lead 100 plus laps, going to need them in your lineups. Not worrying about that at all. This is completely different strategy for this race. So, you know, the Xfinity, I talked about that a little bit in chat with some people, that it is a little bit less correlation in terms of how the Xfinity races turned out. You could actually, in your player pool yesterday, fit 2 drivers kind of from that 5th to 12th in there, and I believe that was in the optimal lineup. So definitely looking at outrights. Yeah, I'm going to bring up my website here and look at some outrights, some guys that maybe stand out. Yesterday wasn't really that good. I didn't bet any outrights just because nothing really stood out. I had a net was the one that stood out. I don't like looking at single digits in terms of betting. So that's one thing I will watch out for when I'm betting NASCAR. Generally, at these types of tracks, the super speedways, the 2 Talladega races and the 2 Daytona races, I won't look for single digits for betting. I want some of, you know, outside the, you know, 10 to 1, something like that. So let's just bring that up and see if we can find any value here. Some drivers that have maybe done good here, maybe have some good odds to give us. So we got the odds board goes Hamill, Logano, Blaney, Elliott, and Keselowski are all inside 10 to 1. So that's not too bad. Almirola 16 to 1, coming off a good race. Like I said, he's been super consistent here. He's won at Talladega, so I don't mind that at 16 to 1. I think that's an excellent value there. Ricky Stenhouse 16 to 1, possibly. I'll take Almirola over Stenhouse all day there, though, in terms of betting. Stenhouse, I'd be looking for more like an 18 to 22, plus 1800 to plus 22 type number for him. I'm just going off of Cool Bet here. I'm only looking at one site, so if you want to go a little bit deeper in the field, maybe grab Newman plus 3,300. That kind of stands out a little bit. I'm not really looking for any of these lower guys. I know we've seen them finish up there, but generally we see these winners do come from the top, you know, top, I guess, higher up equipment, you could say. I mean, Haley won at Daytona. You could go ahead and bet him, but you could throw a couple of, if you're going deeper in the field like this, you could definitely take, if you're betting $5 a bet or $10 a bet, you don't have to just limit it to 1 or 2. You could really take a shot, kind of like golf, and build like a 3 or 4 pack of bets and go down in the field here and maybe go with like a Priest at plus 4,900, go to Haley plus 7,900, Jones plus 4,900, Newman plus 33. So there's 4 there that you could, you know, throw $5 on. If one of them wins, you're up pretty darn good. Myself, I'm probably just going to go with one bet, and I do like Almirola plus 1,600 here. If you can find him probably in that plus 1,800 on some books, I would definitely take that as well. But you can kind of go either way with that strategy this week. I just don't like going in the single digits. So that's the way I'm going with betting for sure. I'm going to look at some prize picks here as well. I just want to see if anything stands out. I'm going to go over chat here real quick. Thoughts about Buescher? Liz asks. Okay, so Buescher's in my GPP pool, starting 21st. He's finished 6th here, both races last year, and pretty consistently inside that top 20. Last 10 races, 18.5 average finish. Last 5, 16.6, and last 2. So, you know, in terms of looking at that progression, he's really either figured out Talladega or just got luckier and luckier every single year he keeps coming back here. So, excuse me. Either way, Buescher starting 21st. I mean, we're looking for 30 DK points just for 5x out of him. Kenny, I think probably going to have a lot of Chris Buescher today. Like I said, we're looking for 30 points. We only need a 17th out of him. He finishes 6th where he has the last 2 races. You're looking at 53 points here. I think 6th to 10th is kind of like his upside, 45 to 53 points. So most definitely in my player pool, him and Priest. I like Priest a little bit more, 8 more place differential points here, but he's going to be higher owned probably because of that. But I like Reddick and Buescher right above him and below him in terms of, it's the same price range, really, $100 difference. It doesn't really matter this week because you're leaving 3, 4, 5, even upwards of $10,000 on the table. $100 difference doesn't matter. But in terms of projecting ownership here, Priest is going to be higher owned just because he's starting 29th. These other two are 20 and 21st. I like all three of them. For me, just because of the ownership, I'm probably going to have more Buescher and Reddick than Priest. I'll have more than the field on Reddick and Buescher, who I think are going to be lower owned than Priest, and then I might be a little bit underweight on Priest. This is a good race to do that. Take these guys. If you think one guy, Almirola or Stenhouse, is going to be more owned, I like going to the guy that's going to be less owned and just making those leverage pivots. There's no better place to make a leverage pivot than a track or in any sport where there is a ton of variance. Baseball, when there's a ton of rain games and guys are going to be high owned. Well, I'm going to go ahead and fade those guys in rain games or a rain game where no one's playing them. Oakland last night. Oakland, I just referencing baseball here. The Athletics last night were fairly low owned because it looked like it was going to get rained out fairly early. They came out and scored 7 runs, so it really wouldn't even matter if it got rained out in the 5th inning because the guys at the top of the order really did crush. So when we get lots of variance, the point is when there's lots of variance, it makes a great strategy in GPP if you're trying to win to pivot off guys in the same price range who are going to be maybe half the ownership. And that's how I feel it's going to work down here with Buescher and Reddick being lower owned than Priest. So I'm going to have more Reddick and Priest in my player pool. There is more risk, obviously, less place differential, but Priest could wreck out early on and finish 35th and, finish outside, not in the optimal lineup. Now I know we're getting deep into the video because my coffee is now ran cold. It is the French vanilla cappuccino, so it's not as bad as just straight cold black coffee. So that means we're going to be wrapping up here soon. Down here, Justin Haley, back to the ownership thing. Priest and Haley are most definitely going to be the highest owned value plays down here in the 65 and under range. Even Newman's probably going to be up there as well. So you're going to see Newman, Priest, Haley. Those are guys that I don't mind having in my player pool just because of the place differential that we talked about and the cheap prices. Even the success that they've had here. They kind of check all the boxes this week, these guys that are in green. But I do like Reddick and Buescher a little more than these two, Priest and Haley. Even getting LaJoie down here starting 26 seems a little bit more risky starting 26, but he is in that mid 5K range. He's had some success here, so he knows these tracks, these super speedways fairly well here. And like a top 10 to 15 is going to be enough to give him 6, 7X here as well. So keep that in mind. If you're making pivots like Bell, I'll be fading here as well. I forgot to just kind of want to go over and show you guys, like right now, my player pool in 20 max is not including any of these guys that are in red. Like usually this looks like the bottom of my player pool each and every week when looking at the standings. This week it's now the top. What strategy would you use for cash if you were playing cash? Place differential, place differential, place differential. Same thing for GPP. You need that place differential. Like I said, make a rule. Only have one driver starting 15th to 20th, or sorry, 2 drivers 15th to 20th. If you're going one driver 10th to 15th, if you're really locked on one guy in that area, go with it. But generally for cash, I'm going 2 in the 15th to 20th, and then the other 4 coming outside the top 20. I wouldn't necessarily just stack the back. I mean, you can do that if you're building contrarian lineups and you want to go start with Burton. Come down here and go Growla and Haley, JJ Yaley. There's a ton of risk there. There's a ton of, obviously it's going to be the most upside build because of the place differential, but there's also a ton of risk there as well. I wouldn't build a whole 20 max on that. If I'm going 20 max pretty, with this small player pool that I got as many lineups as I can with all these guys in green, and at the end, I'll maybe build 1, maybe 2 lineups, just crazy. Or maybe I'll do it in a single entry after I'm all done my 20 max build and do just what you said, stack the back. But generally, I'm not doing that. We just don't see it happen. Just like the guys at the front, targeting dominators, everything has to go right for a lineup like that to work. You need all the front guys, like everyone starting top 10, to crash out. Or have problems and finish at the back, while all these guys down at the bottom, all these lesser equipment, less experienced drivers, you got your Burtons, Growla, Haley, Yaley, Timmy Hill, Josh Bilicki. If you're building a lineup like that, all those guys in lesser equipment need to have like career best finishes, all of them together. That's like getting 3 no-hitters in the same day in baseball type thing. It's not going to happen. So I don't suggest stacking the back. I think there's a lot of risk in that. That's more of a GPP play. But like I said, I would probably go for cash games, 2 drivers between 15th to 20th, and then concentrate on your 20th and back from there. Because, I mean, Newman at 28th would be like someone I would look at in cash. Ryan Preece, 29th, Justin Haley, 34th. Those are my Harrison Burton even. Those 4 drivers in cash for sure. I'd probably grab an Almirola up here. Again, I'm not worried about leaving money on the table even in cash games. I don't play cash games in NASCAR. I build 20 max each and every week, building a small player pool of about 12 to 15 drivers. I'm building a core of 3 of those drivers together, and I'm probably going to build this week, probably going to be a 3-driver core. I'm going to build, say, 6 lineups around those 3 drivers, and then I'm going to mix it up, maybe leaving 1 or 2 of those 3 drivers in the next core, throwing in another driver, build another 3-4 lineups, and then swapping in another driver out of those 3, removing the other 2, and then building more lineups with them, just so that I have core exposure to my core drivers, somewhere in the range of 40 to 60%, upwards of 70. I think that's fine if you're tied on a guy. That's more of a normal race. Where like Truex last week, I was 70%. I think that's fine. Here, I'm generally looking at 40 to 60% exposure because the higher variance that is involved here with Talladega. So the guys in green, I'm looking at 40 to 60% exposure. The guys in blue, I'm about the same, to be honest, right here, just because of what I just talked about. A little bit lower owned possibly on Preece and higher owned on Reddick and Buescher, just because they're all in the exact same price range. One to me stands out as going to be a lot higher owned than the other. Even throw Haley in that conversation as well. So I think 40 to 60% exposure for Reddick and Buescher and LaJoie is fine as well. But any other driver in my player pool outside the ones that you see here are going to be 10 to 30%, 10 to 25% max in my lineups. I'm going to try and make as many lineups as possible with a small core, which is, again, risky and very risky at a Talladega track. But like I said, instead of building 10 lineups around a 3-driver core, I'm probably going to limit it to 5 or 6, switch up the core, build another, 3 or 4, change up the core, keeping one of those main core guys in there pretty much the whole entire time to get me up to his 60%, but mixing it up a little bit. So that's how I'm looking at my lineup build this week. I'm going to scroll up and just go through some more questions here, see if I missed it. Chase the Elliott. There's James. Happy Sunday, buddy. Went over the outright plays. Yeah, strategy is the biggest thing this week. Obviously drivers are important, but just building these rules, and I'll say it every week, building these rules for yourself when you're building your lineups can save you, just at the end. Like I said last week, I used to just, I'd get bored building 20 lineups and have a player pool of like 20 drivers. Oh, I didn't get exposure to this guy. Let's build a lineup around him and end up only having 1 or 2 of a driver. Well, when that driver did good in a week, I'm pissed at myself because I've only got 1 or 2, and it's in a stupid lineup build that I wasn't even really paying attention to because I was just rushing things at the end, which I run out of time. So I can now build a 20 max probably in about 20 minutes, just going off my rules. It just makes it very easy just to go throw those 3 drivers in there, go build 6 lineups, take out one of those drivers, go build another 3-4 lineups, take another driver out and just have that 1 core driver left over, build 2 more so that I have my 50% exposure now out of those 10, 12 lineups, or 60% exposure to my favorite driver. This week's a little bit different. I'm spreading it out a little bit more, but generally, if you have these rules, you can build these lineups pretty darn fast by hand. Specific manufacturer advantage this weekend? Like, do you mean for one manufacturer or another? Obviously, if that's what you meant, Toyotas obviously get a hit. We have seen this play out in the past as well. If 1 or 2 of these Toyota drivers goes out of the race early, there's only also, I haven't showed this yet, team info page. I've added this to the main sheet as well. It's way back over on the far right over here in the bottom tab. I haven't been able to organize it to get it up front for you guys, but yeah, go off this as well. I've got it organized Toyota, Ford, Chevy. So as you can see, Chevy and Ford have a ton of teams in their stable. Toyota's got 6. When 1 or 2 of these drivers goes out, obviously Toyotas are going to work with Toyotas, Fords with Fords, Chevys with Chevys. At different points of the race, you're going to see a Ford pushing a Chevy. I mean, it's got to happen. But in terms of helping or jumping out of line to start a new line or try and make a pass, teams are working together. the spotters are talking to each other. They pit together. You see the Chevys pit together. You see the Fords pit together. You see the Toyotas fit together. So long-winded, but yes, there is definitely an advantage. The Toyotas definitely have the hardest path to winning, the hardest path, especially if they start losing one or two cars in their team. Now they've only got three, and we've seen this play out where they just don't have anyone to work with, and they just get left in the dust because all these other guys are forming 5-6 cars in a row, Ford, and they're going to go. So not only are we looking at teams like Team Penske, Wood Brothers is a satellite of Team Penske, so there's those four, or Stewart Haas working together, or Roush, or Joe Gibbs, or Hendrick, or whatever. You're looking at manufacturer as well, and that's important when building your lineups as well, because they're going to push each other. This is a draft-heavy track. Like I said, they're going to pit. The Fords are going to pit together. The Chevys are going to pit together. The Toyotas are going to pit together. So the correlation is very, very high in building lineups with those teams together, just because at the end of the race, when you see, we've seen it with Colleague yesterday, running their 3 cars together. Generally at the end of the race, as long as one of them doesn't crash out, we're going to see groups of teams pushing each other at the end. So having both of them together, you could get the 1-2 finish, or the 1-2-3, 1-2-3-4. Getting 2 or 3 of drivers. Say you take Team Penske here and you go with those 3. I'm just theoretically here. Take those 3 and they finish 1-2-3, or even 1 wins and 2 inside the top 5. The correlation is most definitely there to look at teams, and I do have that tab for anyone that's jumping in late here. I talked about it early. I didn't show it yet, but it is there on the sheet. Make sure to look at that when you're building your lineups. Have it side by side with you when you're building. Okay, so just one more scroll through. Ryan Newman, highest owned driver on the Cruncher. Yeah, 50%. So if you want to go overweight, if you're worried about ownership, like generally on a normal race, I'm looking at the highest owned driver. I see that the highest owned guy is going to be 50%. I'm going to have 60% just to make sure that I'm covered on the field. Or if I'm going underweight on Newman, which I might in this race, I might only go 40%, 35 to 40% of my lineups. And then, like I said, make those pivots. Like if Reddick and Busher, Corey LaJoie, if they look like they're only going to be, let's say, 20, 25%, while Newman is going to be more, I'm going to mix them in a little bit more. I'm going to be overweight on those guys, underweight on Newman. Burton's probably going to be up there in the 30 to 40% range. Eric Jones probably going to be 5 to 10% lower owned than Newman, I would say. So that's a good pivot there. So keep that in mind as well. Going to wrap things up here. Got to finish some other updates and start building my 20 max out. If you have any questions, definitely hit me up in RotoPro Slack chat, my Jaeger Bombs Slack chat, DFSR Slack, or not a Slack chat, just over at DFSR.com in the chat. On Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9. On Facebook, search Chris Durrell. I'm there. Plenty of ways. Leave your comments in the replay video below. I'll definitely get back to that. I get alerts on that as well. Thanks for joining the video once again. And let's just go build some green screens. And if you're just joining in late or mid, just go back, start the video over. First 5 minutes is just, you can probably just scroll past because it's just me sitting there talking. But there's some stuff I talked about at the start, very heavy on strategy. So make sure to go back and check that out if you're wondering about what strategy to use this week. Because again, warning, it is a completely different strategy than we use at any other track outside of the 2 Talladega races and 2 Daytona races. Keep that in mind. If you're still unfamiliar, please hit me up in chat or on Twitter. Thanks, everyone. Make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe. More videos coming next week in terms of baseball. And as we get into NBA and NHL playoffs, those sheets are going to see a little bit of changes and some more updates. If you guys ever notice anything, hit me up. And again, let's go get some green screens. Good luck out there.